Hello and welcome to another F12 video. My name is Mike Hewitt.
I'm Jacob Rains.
And last where we left off is we were talking about fors and loops and what did you call them? Flow control.
Flow control.
So I'm going to go through here and clean this up real quick. So now we are here, and where are we going to start?
We're going to start, looks like we're back here at just a single console.write line to start with. Real quick, before we get too far into this, this is, I don't know, what, our fourth video
Fourth.
on this series.
Yes.
If you are just joining us for the first time, you might go back and catch one of our other videos where we talk about how to install Visual Studio, get it set up, start your first project. Do a little bit with variables because we're kind of taking over where that video left off. I think we're going to start with switch, which is the next flow control that we need to talk about. We talked about if statements in the last video, which is a big one.
Yes.
Switches aren't quite as common.
And they're kind of a different version of an if statement. And what I did right there, I see people do this all the time. I just typed switch and then tab, and it automatically do that. There's all kinds of things where you type something, you hit tab, and it will kind of stub stuff out for you.
Michael's good at that. I always forget them.
Yeah, so that's one thing I love. So here in the switch statement, let's
make an int variable maybe?
Yeah, something. And we'll set that to 1.
So we've, just to back up, we've created a variable. It's an integer, which means it can only hold a number. And we've gone ahead and set its value equal to 1.
Yes. So now, in this switch, we're going to pass this in. All right.
And just to review, like with the if statement, that's switch, and then we have parentheses around the something, which is what we're testing. And after the switch, those look like parentheses, but they are actually curly braces.
Yes. And that is called a block of something. So
yeah, anytime you put anything in curly braces, it's generally called a block.
Yeah. So how do you want to do this?
Okay, so what we're going to do is, unlike an if statement where we simply run a single test that has to either pass or fail, the switch statement allows us to run many tests over the same value over and over and over again. So in this case, we're going to look at that something variable, and we're going to see which test it passes. So we call these cases. So like this is our, trying to think of a verbiage for that, like our first case, our second case. So what we're going to do is we're going to test that variable to see what value what case it matches up with, and then we're going to pick that case and only execute that bit of code.
Yes. So now, is this?
You don't have a break.
Okay.
Yep, it's giving you errors before you even got to writing the code. There you go.
There we go. So we're going to do a couple of things here.
We need at least 3 of those.
Yeah.
There you go.
And obviously you can't have the same. So now if we hit 2, 3, and then default is kind of like our else statement.
It's our catch-all, and it's not required.
Yeah, I'm going to do, actually.
Yeah. So when this code executes, it's going to look at that something variable, which right now we know is set to the value of 1, because we can see we set it on line 8 and we haven't changed it. Based on that value, it's going to fall into one of these 3 cases, or if it doesn't match any of the cases, it's going to fall into the default. So it's going to check to see if the value is 1. It is, and it's going to execute line 13.
So I'm actually going to run this. It's over here. And so it is, so because something is 1, it's going to hit here. And then when I hit play, it's not going to hit any of these, and it's go right down. So display 1 in. So it does not go into these because something is 1. It's not 2, it's not 3, and because it's one of these 3, it's not going to go into default. Okay.
We can use something other than an int too. We could use a string. Am I getting ahead of you?
No.
Okay. I was going to say we could do a string, and then we could use a console.read.
Yeah. And then we're going to...
Now, since something is now a string, we have to test against strings, which is why we need the double quotes around everything.
Yep, so now we should be here, and so we kind of need to put something here. What is something? And so when we now do this, we're going to, if we type 2, we should hit there. I want to take out all these breakpoints. Another place in debug, you can go here and say delete all breakpoints, and that should get rid of all of them at once. Coming back here, it hit display 2. Now, if we do this again and we type in A, it should give us our default because it's neither 1, 2, or 3.
This seems like a good place to jump ahead and do a do.
Okay.
We could put a do around this whole thing. So a
Yeah.
do is one of the first pieces of code that we're going to teach you that has to do with looping. And there's a lot of looping flow control. Do is not one you see a whole lot, but it's very powerful. So when we encounter a do, and it's real simple, you see a do and then there's an open curly brace.
Mm-hmm.
And then its counterpart at the bottom is a while true down here at the
And
bottom.
you'll see these lines, and that kind of shows you what's in there.
Yeah, that they're connected.
Mm-hmm.
What it means is anything that's between that do and that while, we're going to do over and over and over again until we exit out. And there's a number of ways to do that. But we'll come across that here in a little bit.
Okay.
I think Michael's already working on it. He's made a do loop as a
Yeah.
Boolean, which means it has to be true or false.
We're going to put that here. And then, is this where you want them?
Why don't you make another case? Instead of 1, 2, or 3, why don't you make a case called stop? Because we haven't done a multi-letter one anyhow. Since they're strings now, they don't have to be as simplistic.
Okay. Do we need, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And this says this will turn to false.
Yep. So when it hits that while, it's going to look at that do loop variable, which, as we know, up on line 10 is set to true. And as long as it is true,
it's going to keep
it's
looping.
going to keep right on churning back through this same code over and over again.
Okay, so
this will make a lot of sense here when we start.
So if I hit 1,
oh, we forgot to put the console.write line inside the read line inside the loop.
Yep.
Okay, well,
Hold
easy enough.
on.
We're going to close that program down.
Yes, yeah, I closed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
those two lines 7 and 8 need to go inside the do.
Yeah. Like that.
Yeah, sorry, our bad. One of us should have caught that.
Yeah, we should have. Okay, so if I hit 1, there we go. It's going to ask me again. I hit 2, no problem. If I hit this, it's going to say
try
please
again.
try again. Until I type in stop, then it's going to stop the program. So when it got to stop, it obviously put the word stop, but then it also said false, which means stop looping, and then it continued on to here. So.
Yeah, and there's another way we could have done this too without a variable.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to jump ahead that far? We'll jump ahead that far. We're doing this.
Right.
So let's get rid of line 9.
Okay.
Let's get rid of line 28. Let's go ahead and set our while to true.
Okay.
So effectively right now it is an infinite loop. There is no way out. This is just going to continue forever.
Mm-hmm.
On line 28, we've got our break statement, which means we're exiting out of our switch.
Mm-hmm.
We can set that to a return.
Okay.
And that will exit us out of the whole program. Actually, it'll X us out of the method, but we'll get to that later. We can get rid of that break out of there. Now let's run this.
Okay. What happened?
Close the window and restart it. Sometimes it gets hung up. If it does that, just close out that window altogether.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
I've noticed if you click and drag in the window and then you restart without actually restarting the program, without closing the window out, and now if we type stop, there we go. Alternate way of doing it.
We stopped, but we did not get line 40.
No, because it killed it.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
killed this whole method
Yeah.
from here to here.
Yeah, I didn't think about getting that end of program.
No problem. One other thing I want to do is I want to show the taking away a couple of breaks and a multiple way of doing things.
Okay, well, first off, just delete line 19 and let's see the error that we get.
Okay.
So without that break statement there, what actually happens after it finishes the console.writeLine display 1, it does what's called a fall through, where it falls through into case 2. But unlike a lot of other languages, C# forbids fall throughs. They're not allowed. So because of that, there's a red squiggly there on line 17 underneath the case 1, saying that it's probably going to say something like fall throughs are not allowed.
Control cannot fall through
There you go.
from one case to another.
So that is not allowed, and it's not allowed because it might cause bugs. Now that Mike deleted that line, what you can do is put multiple case statements together, as long as there's nothing happening between them.
So what this does
You
is...
need to change the text on line 19. Should be display 1
Yeah,
or 2.
okay.
There you go.
Yeah. I was going to say, should it be an or? But
Should be
no.
over, but it's close enough.
So if I click 1, it'll say display 1 or 2. 2. So either this or this will go here.
Yeah.
Okay?
3 and stop, or the default, all work the way they always would have.
Yep. So 3 and stop.
There we go.
Yep. So there was a small, I don't know, it was a small texting program, and you know how if you don't want any more text, you can hit stop. Well, you could do this, where if you wanted a couple of different case statements, so you wanted stop all, you wanted please stop, all of these exit out. All these go right to here. So that's a way of doing that. Okay.
Now there's another variation of the do while I just wanted to point out, where you invert it. You put the while at the top.
Yes.
The difference is a do while, you are guaranteed that it's going to run at least once.
So like everything else, you're going through. So you're going to run through this once and then hit true, and then you're going to run through again. Where this is the opposite, where a while will if
it's false out of the get-go, you won't even run through it once.
Right. So real quick, I'm going to get rid of this.
Yep.
And I'm going to say, will this run? Do. I'm going to say false.
Oh, I see where you're going.
And this is false too, but this is a while.
You would do a console.write in there?
Yeah. Hold on. Boom here. And this goes right here, and we're going to say while. Now, go ahead and pause the video right now. And which ones do you think will run? Will both of them run? Will either one of them run? And there's kind of a hint on the screen that's green, but time's up. What we will see is, will this run do? So this did run through because it's going to run through once and then stop to the false, where this one never ran through because it's false at the very beginning. So that's just the difference right there.
Just two slight variations on the same thing.
But yeah, they're the kind of the same thing, just opposite.
So we wanted to cover the real big lion's share of looping is done with fors.
Right.
But before we get into fors, I think we wanted to cover a little bit of important background first.
Yes, a little bit more stuff on variables.
This is going to come back to help us later.
I think the first, we've talked about strings, okay? And I'm going to call this string A, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, here's a little thing right here to stop. When I run this, oh, where'd it go? Behind. When I run this, let's get rid of Mike's age here. We're going to bring this over. Come on. String A is null.
What does that mean?
Yes, go ahead. What is null?
So null is kind of a weird concept when people first start learning to program, but it is really easy. Null is nothing. It is absolutely nothing. It's not empty. It's not zero.
Right.
It is the lack of data.
And if I have
It reminds me of the nothing from the
no
Neverending Story.
apples, how many apples do I have?
If you have no apples, you have 0 apples.
Right. So how is null different than that?
Null would be you don't know how many apples you have.
Yeah, there you go.
Null would be
that's a good one.
Yeah, it's not 0. A lot of people confuse it with 0 or a string with no characters, but it is something different. It is the absence of data.
So now, oops, did I get rid of that? I apologize. So now, when we do an int, I'll just move this over. As you can tell, int b, I didn't put a value to it, and it's not null, it's 0.
Now the difference being, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this one,
Right.
but we have 2 different types of data types in C#, like many other languages.
Mm-hmm.
And they're called value types and reference types. And I don't want to go too far into the difference.
Yeah, that's going to be a good video.
That'll be a good video on its own. But the difference is value types have a default value that isn't null.
Mm-hmm.
Ints go to 0, decimals go to 0.0. Strings, being reference types, go to null. All reference types go to null.
Yep.
They have to have a value assigned to them before they have a get value. There's a workaround. So sometimes we have an int and we want the int to be null.
Okay. Let me int C. Perfect. How would we make this null?
Because I want to be able to store a piece of data that says I don't know the value of this variable, and I don't just want to set it to 0. So the trick is, whenever we have a value type like that, we put a question mark after the data type.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we do that, if you rerun the program here, and the watch window might give you something weird here. No, it didn't. Okay.
There we go.
Now it can have a value of null. It's basically me telling the compiler, yeah, I know it's a value type, but I want it to be able to be null.
Yes. And now now later on down the program, right, we do a bunch of work. And now we want to say int C equals 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
We filled it with something. We're counting widgets, and then we're going to, let's even do this. Let's display this on the screen. And now we want to do it again. We want to reuse that. We can do, this thing's really killing me here, and yeah. So now we can reset it back to null if we wanted to.
Absolutely, and that happens all the time.
Something completely different. Like now it's this time. So if we were to run this, we would see first time around it was 6, then we nulled it back out. Now it's 6. So we can, just because we filled it, we can take it back to null.
And you'll see if you go back to line 10 and you take out that question mark, the code breaks down on line 17 because we can't set it to null anymore because it's not a nullable data type.
Mm-hmm. So that is nulls.
If you wanted to go back to our review of the if, we could write an if statement to check to see if it is null or if it's not null.
So throw all this in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we can say, okay, and this is a good point. Well, that was no. We don't want to know if it equals null. We want to know if it doesn't equal null. Right?
Yeah, that's the opposite. Usually, so the way we would normally check for something is we say equals equals null.
Right.
But we don't want to know if it is null. We want to know, like I said, if it isn't null. So instead of, like we said, talked in one of the other videos, equals equals is a test to see if those two things are equal. Mm-hmm. There's another operator, the technical word for it, which is exclamation mark equals, which is a test to see if they are not equal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to tell you that it's unassigned. So you actually need to literally say equals null up here at the top, because it doesn't like the idea of it just being
right
out there. It wants it set to something, even if it's null.
Okay.
So now it's
yep.
Now it's only going to go into that code if int c has a value, which right now it would not.
Right. And
we can move that int c equals 5 out if you wanted to test that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me put that back.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's run that.
Okay. There we go. Just like 5, then it came in here because it was 5 and it was not null, and displayed 5. Then we nulled it back out, and 6, and that's where we got it right there. So that covers nulls, and also we had the equals equals, and now we have the not equals.
Okay, I'm going to do one better.
Mm-hmm.
So on our if statement there,
yep.
What if we only want to go into that if statement if int c is not null, like we have written there?
Okay. And something else?
We need it to be greater than 4.
Okay, I like that. Okay. How would we do that?
We use.
I'm going to play.
You're going to play the student on this?
Yes,
one?
Yes.
We're gonna use. It's actually the name of the command is actually called and also, but nobody ever calls it that. We're going to call it. We just call it and it's done with 2 ampersands.
Yep.
And then we can write 2 tests.
Okay.
So the next test is going to be int c is greater than, what did I say? 4?
4.
So now we have 2 tests. Int c does not equal null, and int c is greater than 4. So we're only going to go into the if statement if both of those statements are true.
Okay.
Which they are right now because int c is equal to 5.
And I need to get out.
Need to restart that one. Yep. There you go.
Okay. And so, yes, we go in.
Now if we change int c to 3...
I should do a read console, but...
Yeah.
Now if we do this, it does not go in.
Just goes straight to end the program.
Over both of those. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
The other variation, which I just want to touch on, there is another command called OR, which is done with 2 bars, which is, where is that on the keyboard? Because that's not a statement. Underneath the backspace.
Right underneath the backspace. Now, the and means this statement here and this statement here has to be true. This one means this one or this one. So this should work and should get us in there.
And just to cover my technicals here, the double bar is actually the or else command is actually what it's called. It sounds very authoritative. Or else.
And we are getting in here not because this is definitely false, but this one is true. And there's no way this can be true without that can be true.
It's a bad example,
yes,
but it gets the point across.
Yes.
Some people like to put them in parentheses for readability.
Right.
We might do that just to illustrate, but you can always add parentheses. So.
Yep. So there's that. And what else? Do you want to finish at the 4 or leave that to another video?
Let's see if we can do the 4 real fast. We may
Okay.
go into more detail on it later because we're going to have to get into the for each and some other variations. But real quick, we're going to write a for loop.
Yes.
All right, back to blank here. So the for command is a little intimidating to look at because it is a very verbose code. It has this crazy syntax inside the parentheses. So up until now, it's been like a real simple test.
Yep.
So what the for does is it has really 3 commands separated by semicolons inside the parentheses. And
Sorry.
if you wouldn't mind highlighting them for me, Mike. The first one is int I equals 0.
Yep.
That is just exactly what it looks like. We're going to create a variable called I, and we're going to set it equal to 0.
And so I is 0. So don't worry about any of this. If it ran here, this would say 0.
Yeah.
That's it.
Now, every time it runs, we're going to do these next 2 commands, and unfortunately, not in order. So we're going to run this command called I++.
It is in order, yeah.
It's called I++ here at the end.
Okay.
That runs every time the loop runs. What that means, I++ is just a shorthand that programmers use. It means I equals I plus 1. We're just adding 1 to the variable. We add 1 to variables so frequently that we've just created a shortcut called ++ to do it. You want to step through that?
Yeah, let's just do this. I'll show you. So this is kind of what it's doing. If we look at, let's go to the next one. Sorry, hold on. F10, there we go. So I'm going to pin this. So J is 0. When I step down, J is going to go up 1, and then J is going to go up another. So ++ will do exactly that.
It just adds 1 to the variable. It's so incredibly simple, and so many people don't know what it is because they never tell you anywhere.
Yeah.
Minus is the opposite. It just means we're decreasing the number by 1.
So real quick, while we do this, F10, we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're going to go just stepping and back down. So that's basically what we're doing here. I is the same as this, except for and then we're going to do that. So yeah. I'm getting rid of this.
And then every time we loop through, after we increase I, we run the middle statement, which is I is less than length. I'll wait for Michael to catch up here.
I deleted J and I don't know how to get rid of this. Never mind. I'll just let go.
It'll go. I is less than length. They're on line 10. That's the last part of the for. It is a test to determine if we should keep going in our loop. So as long as I is less than whatever the value of length is, we will keep running our for loop over and over and over again, very similar to our do while.
Yep.
If at some point I is not less than length, we're going to exit the for loop and we're going to stop.
So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and we're going to get here.
I is 0, which makes sense. We set it to 0 on line 10.
Okay. And so then when I'm going to hit play again, it's going to go around again.
Yeah, you're not going to see it really move.
Yep.
Because we're going to come back and loop back and hit the same
place. So
what
it did is took I and added 1 to it, and then it's just going to keep going. And it's going to stop when, if I look at I here, is 5, length is 10. When this becomes less than 10, when it's not less than 10, it's going to keep going until about here. And then the next time around, it will finish the program. So if you see, we got 0 through 9.
Yeah, because when it got to 10, 10 was not less than 10. And it stopped.
So that is pretty much the simple version of a for error.
Yeah, that's about the simplest for you can do.
Yeah.
Like I said, a little intimidating to look at initially, but you get used to them real fast. And then they're pretty simplistic. They almost always start out with, because you're almost always working with integers, and you're almost always incrementing by 1. So what you see, the pattern that you see 90% of the time is for int variable equals 0. Variable is less than some limit.
Right.
Variable ++. You see that over and over and over.
And I think of it is this. So this one starts off right here. This one tells it to continue on. And this one is executed at the end. Right?
Yep.
And that is, that's it. Is there anything left on our list? We went minus, plus, plus.
I think it's everything important.
Yeah. So very good. I hope this is a kind of a hodgepodge of a bunch of little things. We brought more to the variables.
Did a lot of flow control.
Did a lot of flow control. We showed more on the null side of the variables and
We did
the
ands
loops.
and ors.
And yeah, ands and ors, and the looping of the do's and the whiles and the fors, all the looping. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks.
Thank you for watching that video from F12 Programming. Please remember to like and subscribe. That does so much for us in the ratings. You have no idea. Also, don't forget to comment below. I hope you enjoyed, and good luck coding.